Welcome to the Motivational Midwife. My name's Lynn Jones, and today on Talking Points I'm going to be considering sort of informed choice and informed consent. Okay, so why did I think about doing a little session on informed choice or informed consent? And I think it really came about after I'd read a blog by Dr. Sarah Wickham, of whom I'm a huge fan. And if you haven't read any of her books or been on her website, I totally recommend it. She's done all the hard work for you about picking research apart and determining whether it's good research or whether it's questionable research. Her current book, Plus Size Pregnancy, around increased BMI and how that affects choices for women, is extraordinary and really did make me think about some of the things that, I hold my hands up to as well in terms of how I discuss things with women. And you think you're giving people informed choice, but actually most of the time we're not really. We're paying lip service to informed choice, and hopefully that will become clear as we go through and make you go away and really question your practice, because I know it certainly made me question some of mine. It's just a really brief run through of things that to make you think, just to really make you think. So the NHS Constitution actually says that patients, that we have the right to make choices about the services that the NHS bodies commission. So in part of those services is maternity. And obviously that those options will depend on individuals' needs and develop over time. And within that is choice, choice comes in that, and it's part of the NHS England's long-term plan. And within that plan, there are 5 major practical changes to the NHS, and one of those things is personalised care. And personalised care, a lot of personalised care plans are now coming into maternity. Certainly they're within the digital systems that are used currently. And I think we're still not really very good at providing personalised care unless somebody wants to step outside of our guidelines. Then I think we're quite good at putting a plan together for those families. But we're not, I think, generally very good at thinking about what does personalised care really mean. And within really, choice is about, this whole personalised care really is about giving people back choice. And the next slide will demonstrate that a little bit more. And it's also about shared decision making. And again, I think to some extent we do play lip service to that shared decision making process. We often offer women choices that are not really they're not much of a choice, if that makes sense. So personalised care, what does it say about it? So it actually says that it's a new relationship between people, professionals, and the health and care system. So, do we really give personalised care in maternity? It says here it shifts the power and the decision making to the families, to the women, the birthing people. Does it? Do we? Do we do that? I'm not sure we do, and I think the vast majority of women kind of just come into the system and often just do exactly what we tell them to do. And I'm not sure that's really personalised care, and I'm not sure it's much of a choice either. So the shared decision making, I mean, a choice is really handing that control back to people, and giving them control over the way their care is planned and delivered. That is what is said within the NHS England constitution, the NHS constitution. And when we're looking at shared decision making, what it actually states is that conversation between, for us, midwives, doctors, obstetricians, all of us, physios, whoever, it should bring together our expertise as the clinician. So that may be, here it says treatment options, but for us that may be birth options. And what are the evidence around those options, the risks and the benefits? And I know, for example, anaesthetists are extremely good when women request an epidural at coming, and they're very good at telling women the risks of that epidural and the benefits of that epidural, and they go right down to there is a 1 in however many chance of paralysis. They actually do spell that out in no uncertain terms, and I'm not sure we're as good in other areas. Well, I know we're not as good in other areas at being that specific when we're giving women choices or birthing people choices. And the second part of that is that conversation is for the birthing person themselves, knowing what's best for them, their personal circumstances, their beliefs, their values, and I think certainly that half of this shared decision making often gets lost in the system, I feel, and I feel we often sort of have that, and I'm as guilty as the next person of this, certainly. And we're not always very good at actually taking those things really into account if it doesn't fit with what we are providing. So thinking about, do we do this for all women? So think about BMI, for example. Women with increased BMI often have quite narrowed options because of their BMI. But do we actually say to women, your increased BMI may exclude you from being able to use certain facilities like the birth pool? And again, I hark back to Sarah Wickham, I'm afraid, but the example she gives in the beginning of her plus size pregnancy book, which again really made me think, was of a set of twins who were both exactly the same weight, but one was a bit taller than the other, and so one had a very different pregnancy journey to the other. One had a very straightforward, all her choices met through the system, allowed to use the pool, any of those sort of things, whereas the other one actually had a much more medicalised, interventionalist journey. And the thing she pointed out, which I found quite interesting, was that should both those women use the birth pool and collapse in the pool, you're taking out exactly the same weight because they weighed the same. And this is, why I think it's sometimes we become very tunnel visioned because our guidelines say, and remember they are guidelines, they're not, thou shalt do, they are guidelines, and sometimes evidence supersedes those guidelines, and guidelines take quite a while to get changed, in my experience, within most hospital trusts. Thinking of Group B strep, how does that curtail for women? Can they use the birth pool? I think in some areas they can, in other areas they can't. It's very hit and miss depending where you live. Water birth, again, very hit and miss for some women. Do we actually explain all the risks and the benefits to women, or do we just point blank say, oh, I'm sorry, you're a VBAC or you're an induction of labour, so you can't do that. I did hear the other day actually of someone who was having Synto augmentation and delivered in a pool. They had telemetry on, so I was quite impressed with that, really. It's but I don't know what discussions were had with her, and I can't remember where that actually took place, but it was something that someone told me. Again, multiple births. Very often in a lot of hospitals, these women are made to certainly, head to theatre for vaginal deliveries, just in case. And have we actually had those discussions with women? And very often the room that you're in is not that far from theatre anyway, if there was to be an issue. Women with previous severe perineal trauma, do we have those discussions with them? Or are they given a sort of fait accompli, like, you should have a previous 4th degree tear, you should have an elective section, or you should have an elective episiotomy, or any of those things which I've heard over the years. And VBAC women, how many of their choices are curtailed? Do we really have the risks and benefits? Interestingly, with the VBAC, I think it was 2019 when NICE's guideline came out saying that women did not need to be continuously monitored via a CTG, and they did not need to routinely have IV access. And then there was great rafts of horror thrown up, I believe mainly by obstetricians, but I could be wrong there. And so that NICE reworded its guidance then to say women should be advised to deliver in hospital where those there is the option to use CTG monitoring. It doesn't still say they have to have it, but you tend to find that actually, unless women say no, thank you very much, I don't want this, they will be told they have to have continuous monitoring in labour. Well, is that the case? Is that, look at the evidence. Does the evidence support that? I'm not saying yay or nay to any of these things. What I'm trying to get you to do is really think about the options we give women, and do we really give them choice, informed choice? Again, one of the things that Sarah Wickham mentioned in her blog, which really made me think, was, and I'm certainly guilty of this, when we test women's urine, do we actually say to them, if we're sending it off to the lab, do we actually say to them, well, if this comes back with group B strep, it is going to have an impact on the choices that will be available to you? I've never said that to a woman, I have to say. I've never said that. And it really did make me think, when we weigh women, and calculate their BMI, and many of our, unfortunately, many of our IT systems will not let you progress through the algorithms unless you have actually completed a BMI. There's not a button for declined, but do we have that conversation with them that if your BMI is increased, this may expose you to increased interventions, such as VTE, prophylaxis. Again, it's not something I personally have ever really thought about, particularly in the antenatal period. And postnatally, all of us just routinely calculate a postnatal VTE score and kind of hand it to women as a a fait accompli that, you've scored this, so this is what we would recommend. But we haven't actually had that conversation first with women. And I do think that we need to all get a little bit better at really thinking about informed choice. And do we really actually have that conversation with women? I have to say I have myself, because I've been doing quite a few bookings in the community recently, and if I have been booking a woman who has got an increased BMI, I have signposted her to Sarah Wickham's book, so that she can make informed choices about her care and going forward those options to her. And I had a very nice email back from a lady that I did this, thanking me for actually not being judgmental and also helping her access good information to make those informed choices. And that's what I think we have to remember, is that it is the family's choices, the women and their families' choices. We tend to think it is just about what should fit in with what we're doing, and pressure of work, staffing, all of those things do impact on our ability, really, I think, sometimes to see the wood for the trees. It is a bit of a minefield, I think, a bit of a minefield. But hopefully this has given you some things to think about around choice and consent. And there you have it. I hope that's given you some things to think about, and I hope you'll take some of those thoughts back to practice and see if you can make a difference. I look forward to seeing you next time. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do so, and find us on Facebook.